Can you chuds hear me? Is everything all right? I know that there's a delay, so I'm gonna wait for you guys to. Okay, perfect. We made it. All right, sorry for the little wait. Hoping that everyone's doing all right. Today's stream is probably gonna be a bit shorter than yesterday's, just because I have to leave at around 1:30 or something, because there's like a Bulgarian celebration or some bullshit like that. But yeah, so first, as I said yesterday, I'm gonna recap what we did yesterday, and then I'm gonna show you guys the basics of coding, and I'm also going to share with you some of the best resources I've used with regards to like learning how to code and everything, right? Like there's a guy whose channel is basically, it's very similar to what I'm doing right now, except I'm gonna be frank, it's way better than what I'm doing right now. The only thing is that his channel has more to do with like people who already understand how Unity works and who understand like the basics and who just want to code specific things, right? So like myself, for instance, yesterday I showed you guys like how to install Unity, how to get Visual Studio working, how like what each different thing in Unity is, right? Like what the inspector is. Yeah, exactly. Like yeah. That's nothing, bro. I have like all of this. But yeah, basically exactly like I showed you guys like what each part of Unity is, right? And he doesn't do that, right? He does basically his that guy's tutorials are for what do you call it? Like intermediary, right? Like people who aren't absolute beginners, right? So what I'm gonna do today is show you once again like the absolute basics, and then once I've shown you this, I'm gonna give you some of these resources, right? So let me just open Unity here. Here are like all of my bajillion projects. Yeah, so we're gonna click Game Dev Tutorials. So that's how you open a project. You just click on it, it's gonna load, blah, 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 you know? There you go. Very basic stuff, right? But first, I'm also gonna recap what I showed you guys. I'm not gonna go over like all of the different things, right? Like the installs, the new project, etc., because I mean, I think I spent a fairly long amount of time on that yesterday. All right, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so if we remember correctly, this here is the layout. Like we can go wide. I actually like wide. It's not bad. We can go tall. We can go, well, this is the one I'm using. It has like 3 different, because I have 3 monitors, so you know I use it. But since most people, well, at least a third of the people here only have 1 monitor, I'm gonna go default. Or no, wait, ours was Game Dev Tutorials layout, okay, which is slightly different from the default one. So then, as I said, we have our scene here. Well, we have our hierarchy, which shows the scene, right? And yeah, and here we have like the main camera, which if we click here, hold on, no, not this. If we click this, this is the view from the camera's point of view, right? So then if I were to, let's say, move this like that, see, now the camera is higher. If I were to move it diagonally further down, see now it's further away and it's down, right? And if I were, hold on, let's see. If I were to do Control Z, see? Control Y, Control Z, Control Y, Control Z, see? So that's the idea, basically. Then, you know, we have the directional light. If I press E to modify the angle of the directional light, right? You can see how the light changes. Well, it's not showing it properly here in the editor, but if I were to press play, because as we remember, when we press play, that's when like all the code starts working. Right now we don't have any code, so nothing's gonna happen. But if I were to press play, you're gonna see the skybound, obviously. But if I were to modify, let's see, this like that, see, now it has changed a bit. Hold on. There you go, because the lighting is different. And if I press stop, it's back to how it used to be. Then we have like the empty cube here. Yeah, hold on. We have like the empty, because it's the empty object with a box collider. Then we have this cube here, right? Which is a child of the empty object. And then we have the sphere, which the sphere, let's just move it 0.5 like that. So I changed, you can manually change the values like 25, let's say, or whatever, like 2, oops, 1. All right. Okay, this is another important thing, right? Since the sphere here is the child of the cube, and once again, the cube here, its scale is 10 on the X and 10 on the Z axis, and 1 on the Y axis. Any movement I do with this, right, like that I change it here, it's going to be multiplied by 1, right? So that's why if I write like 0.5, it's actually 0.5, right? Like it's actually accurate, right? Or let's put 1 here like that. But since the X and Z axes are like 10 times larger than this, right? This here, its scale is showing like the ratio, right? This is basically 10 times smaller on the X and Z axes. So that means that if I move it even slightly, right? See, I moved it technically 0.1, but that's not its real position. Its real position is 1 on the X-axis, 1 on the Y, and 0 on the Z, right? But because it's 10 times smaller, this is its position based on the center of this one, right? So, because if I were to detach it, oh fuck, yeah, because it's a prefab. Okay, this is another thing. Once I've turned this into a prefab, it becomes a bit more complicated to have to like decouple things if you want, right? Because basically here it says like cannot restructure prefab instance, children of a prefab instance cannot be moved, and components cannot be reordered. You can open the prefab mode to restructure the prefab asset itself or unpack the prefab instance, blah blah blah, right? What this means is if we click cancel, nothing happens. If we try to move it again and we click open prefab, what it does is it opens the actual prefab. So if you guys remember, here we have like all of our assets. And if we go into the prefabs folder and then test prefabs, this thing, so let's say here we're like in a different scene. Well, we're not really in a scene here. Here we're like, basically this is what the game files work, right? And once again, this is what happens when you don't have like proper lighting. Like you see what happens? Yeah. So this is why I was telling you guys yesterday, like, be careful with the lighting. The lighting can absolutely break your game, right? So basically, here I'm in my scene, right? And as you can see, the sphere is here, right? But if I double click on my prefab in my prefabs folder, double click, this here is the actual prefab, right? Like not in the world, not in anything, right? And as you can see, it's still the same way it was before I started messing with it today, right? So again, this is different from this, right? If I click this like that. So now if I click on this, on the actual prefab, here in the inspector, you can see prefab empty object. If I were to click like that, it's gonna highlight here, right? It's gonna highlight what the source, like what this thing is, right? Because this refers to what is the prefab that this object is based on, right? See, this one doesn't have anything because it's not a prefab. This one here doesn't have anything else, anything either, I mean, because it's not a prefab. This does because it is a prefab. This doesn't because it's technically not a prefab. It's part of a prefab because it's the child of the prefab. Do you understand what I mean? So because it's the child of the prefab, it's technically part of the prefab. That's why like these ones are in blue, whereas these ones are written in white, right? But again, it's like the prefab is the parent object, but obviously it includes all the children, right? So as you saw here, I've modified this, but when I double click on the prefab, it's not modified, right? And because I've made modifications to the prefab inside of the scene, here, it's given me options, right? Like overrides, like review, revert, or apply overrides. So what it means by overrides is that because I've made changes to this instance of the prefab, exactly. So because I've made changes to this instance of the prefab, now it's like we have two different versions of the prefab that exist. So here it's asking me, do you want, if I click apply all, what it's gonna do is that it's going to override the original prefab in the files, and now all prefabs are gonna look like this. If I do revert all, it's gonna do the opposite. It's gonna override this instance of the prefab in the scene, and it's going to transform it back to how the original prefab was, right? If I do select, it's gonna select this. If I do open, like that, right? Now, if I remember correctly, there was a way to basically create a new prefab. So let's see, if I press apply all, okay, there you go. Yeah, so now it's applying everything. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Yeah, see, so now it has applied this basically, but something, hold on. Now let's see this. Let's click on the sphere. Let's put it at 0, like that. And now, once again, we have overrides, we have this, etc., etc. Now, if I were to drag and drop this here. Okay, there you go. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Okay, so now, again, this looks like this. This is slightly different. So now, again, once again, we have two different versions of the prefab. If I want to keep this original one and simply create like a variant, I can just select this newly modified prefab. Hold on, let's modify it a bit just for it to be a bit more obvious. Let's say this is going to be 2, right? So now it's kind of like an egg, not an egg, but like a kind of oval type of thing, right? So now let's say I want this to be its own thing and I want this to stay the same, right? So I'm just gonna drag and drop this here, and it's gonna ask create prefab or variant. Would you like to create a new original prefab or a variant from the existing one, right? So let's say we want like an original prefab. So now we have two different prefabs here. So now we have two different prefabs here, and then let's say I'm gonna modify it once again, right? So now basically this here is not a prefab of this anymore, it's a prefab of this, right? So as you can see, if I select the prefab it's based on, it's gonna select this. It's not selecting this anymore, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a variant of this one by, let's say, taking the cube and modifying it to 5, right? So now as you can see, I modified the parent cube. I divided its scale on the x-axis by 2, because before that it was 10. I divided it by 2, which means 5. And so now this is now even like this sphere's values here haven't changed, right? If I do Control Z, hold on. If I do Control Z, see, like its values haven't changed because it's based on this thing, right? So let's say, yeah, let's say we're gonna change the cube to 5 here, like that, and this we're gonna double it like that. There you go. So now once again we're gonna drag and drop, and now we're gonna create a prefab variant. There you go, right? So now we have this variant, which is object variant, empty object variant. This is empty object 1, etc., etc., right? So now if I were to, like, I don't know, modify this, like put this back to 10, right? Like that. Exactly. Now I have overrides for the variant. Like, so you see what I mean? So the utility of this, once you're making a game, is, let's say you have like an enemy, right? So you, like, let's take an example, like a really basic example. Okay, there you go. That's what I was looking for. Okay. So here you have, like, let's say 4 different variants of grunts for Halo, right? So basically, let's say you create a template that's none of these colors, right? It's just a template with all of the variables, all of the different things that you need, right? And you create it here, right? Well, then you can create variants where you just slightly modify the different values, so that way you don't need to always create a new prefab every time. You just copy paste, make a few modifications, and in no time you have these 4 variants, right? Like, I don't know, this one's the basic one, this one does a bit more damage, this one has a bit more HP, this one's a bit faster or some shit, right? And bam, you have like your different variants of the original prefab, for instance. Okay, so let me see something. So the parent is the square and the circle is the child. Yeah, okay, so hold on. So the parent of the cube is the empty object. The parent of the sphere is the cube, right? So the cube is the child of the empty object, and the sphere is the child of the cube, right? That's why here, if I press on this, like a triangle type of thing, all of the children disappear. Same thing here, right? And if I press it again, they appear, right? And so technically, you could say that every single object inside the scene is a child of the scene itself, if that makes sense, right? And again, here you can see a little star next to the scene. That means I've made changes, but I haven't saved. So again, save project, just to be clear. Okay, I think I understand. The prefab is like a master mold, and instances are like replicas of that, right? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So as I said, like, let's say you have like a nebulous, like, original grunt type thing or whatever, and then you have like the basic grunt, then like you have the extra damage, or like variant number 1, variant number 2, variant number 3, right? Or whatever, right? Or maybe you have an original one, and then this is variant 1, variant 2, variant 3, etc., etc., right? So that's the idea, generally speaking. And once again, here in project, you have like your different, like, you can access your different folders. Here's our script that we created. Reminder, you just right click, here create, and here you can create a bunch of stuff. But once again, I basically subdivide all of the different things in my game into folders because it's easier. Like, the key to game development is clarity. You need to be as clear as possible, because sometimes you're going to work on something, like you're going to work on a prefab, you're going to work on a script, you're going to work on a bunch of different stuff, and then you're going to be done with that thing. Like, let's say the player controls, you're going to be done with the player controls, right? But then, like, maybe 6 to 12 months later, you're going to have to add a new mechanic or change a few things or whatever. And so you're going to need to go back to your code that you haven't touched in like a year or more. And so you need everything to be as clear as possible and to be similar to everything else that you've done so far, so that you know, like, what's happening, right? I'm reminded of games with dozens of zombie types that differ in color. Exactly. But that type of design, right? This here is like typical. I would say that if you're designing a game that doesn't have like this type of design where you have like the same enemies but they look slightly different, it's not a good idea, because this is intuitive, right? Like, you're constantly exposed to the orange grunts, so you're like, okay, so I know what the grunts are, and then all of a sudden a red one appears, so immediately you're like, oh, that one's different, right? It's the same thing with the, what are they, God of War trolls. Hold on. Yeah, you can see here. You have like that one. You have that one. You have that one, right? Like, you have a bunch of different looking trolls, and so you know that they're each like, they each have their own gimmick, right? Yeah, you have these ones, etc., etc. You know. So yeah. So again, that's like the rough recap. Here you have like your hierarchy with the game objects. Here you have your scene view. As I said, like, I typically have two scene views. One is for the UI, one is for the actual game objects. For now, I don't have any UI, so it's kind of pointless. And this is the actual game view, right? And here it's your asset store, but I mean, we're not going to use that yet. Maybe eventually, but for now, we're not going to touch that. Because this just brings you to like, hold on. It brings you, it just brings you to this. But I do all of my shopping, like, well, not that I do a lot of shopping, but whenever I'm looking to buy something on the asset store, I just go on the website. It's easier, it's more practical and everything, right? So there you go. All right. So now let's get to actually scripting, right? Now I'm going to show you guys how to actually like script something. So we're going to go here into script. As I said, we go here, mono behavior script. If I click this, it's going to create a script, and then I'm going to have to name it like yesterday. Here's an important thing, okay? I'm going to double click this to open it, and you're going to see the name of the script basically. Okay, there you go. Public class test. So that's the name of the script. If I were to change the name here, right? Like, I double click and I change it to whatever, that's a bad idea, because this name here is not gonna get changed, right? So you're just gonna end up creating a bunch of problems for yourself, right? Which is just not a good idea, basically. Okay, and then this here is just the type of what's it called? The type of script that it is. It's a mono behavior script. What does mono behavior mean? I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I have no idea. I know for a fact I've seen a video of someone explaining it, but that was like years ago, and I frankly don't remember, and it's not that important. All you need to know is this is the type of script, and this is the name of the script. Even though it says public class, all that means when it says public is that it can be accessed by other stuff. If this was private, it would be a script that would be able to interact with other public scripts, but other public scripts would not be able to interact with it, if that makes sense. Okay, so hold on. Sorry, I had to drink a bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna go through like one by one the different, like I'm gonna explain to you guys what each of these different things are, basically. And I'm just gonna open up my actual game script. As you can see here, it's already like far more complicated, basically. Hold on. Okay, there you go. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, hold on. There you go. Okay. So, first let's start with this first line. Anything that is here, anything that starts before public class, it's the type of, I think they're called dependencies. I'm not sure entirely, but basically these are the things that allow your script to access a bunch of data that sometimes if you want to add certain specific variables, or if you want to add certain specific things. Yes, in Python, there's a similar distinction between classes, global and local. Exactly. Yeah, depending on the languages, some languages are going to use global, local. Others are going to use public, private, etc. But the idea is always the same. The idea is that, hold on, private equals cannot be, oh Jesus Christ, okay, maybe it's not a good idea to write it here, but basically, hold on, I'm gonna open Paint. All right. Accessed by other stuff. And technically speaking, what I just wrote isn't entirely true. There are ways in which you can access private stuff, but I never use it because it's there's no point. If you want to access something, make it public equals can be accessed by other stuff. Here, cannot. There you go, right? So that's the idea. Private, oh, hold on. Private equals cannot be accessed by other stuff, but can access. So hold on, let me rewrite this actually. Let me rewrite this. And then here we're gonna write this. Public equals can be accessed. There you go. So that's the difference, right? Public can be accessed by everything and can access other public, whereas this can access other public. There you go. See? So those are the main differences, right? Whenever something is public or private or whatever, right? These ones here, when it says void, all it means is that it, how can I say, like, people always told me like void, it just means that this doesn't return anything. Honestly, to this day, I don't know what the fuck that means, and I don't care, right? It's not that important. All you need to know is this is how you write it. Void start, void update, void whatever, right? Sometimes you can write functions that don't use void, but me personally, I've never used it, so it's not that important, right? If you're curious about it, look it up online, because like, as I said, I don't know what this is. I've never used something that's not void, so it doesn't really matter, basically. Okay, so now let me explain to you like what all of this means. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, it added this. Okay, there you go. Perfect. So void start means that anything that's here, right? Anything that's between this and this is going to happen. Exactly. It says start is called once before the first execution of update after the mono behavior is created. What this means is the moment, let's say this object, like let's say here, I'm gonna drag and drop the script into here as a component, right? So now you see the script is here, right? The script is now acting like as a component, right? So this is how you make code happen. You just drag and drop you just drag and drop the script into here, basically. Exactly. So the idea is, hold on, where was it? There you go. The idea is that void start happens only once when the object is created, or whenever the script is like activated for the first time, right? So like let's pretend that this thing is like a projectile, like you have a gun and you're shooting bullets, right? And so you attach the bullet is a prefab, the script of the player or the gun or whatever accesses the prefab and basically spawns a bullet prefab whenever you press like the button to shoot, right? So at that point you have a script attached to the bullet that says like move forward, for instance, right? And so basically the moment the bullet is created, is spawned for the first time. Oh, not this. This here, void start is gonna happen once. Then void update, here it says it's called once per frame. So what this means is that this void update happens about 60 times per second, right? Because from what I understand, Unity is programmed to work like at 60 frames a second. So this thing here happens basically 60 times every second. So whatever code you put in update happens 60 times every second, right? Now, as you can see here, void test function, this is a function I created yesterday, right? Like towards the end of the stream, I just created this as a test function, right? So typically what you want to do is, let's say here we have like the bullet, right? Like if you write two of these, oh, I forgot what they're called, like dashes or whatever, everything else that's written after it doesn't matter. Like the code doesn't read it. So this is useful for when you want to like you can see here, it's giving you notes, right? It's telling you what each thing does, right? You can erase it, you can keep it, it's up to you, right? Like you can do whatever you want with it, but basically, exactly, those are comments, exactly. So here all I'm gonna write is pretend that there's code in here that makes a projectile move forward. Okay. C, X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. So this is the code, let's say, blah, blah, blah. Right? And so then if I were, as you can see, like void start, this happens only once, right? But if I were to turn this off, right, as a comment, and then just copy paste it here, then this function would happen 60 times every second, right? It would happen once every frame, basically, right? So this is useful for like, depending on what you want to do, right? Like, do I want, well, I'm going to show you examples and you guys are going to understand, right? So this is how these things work, right? And you also have another thing called awake. There you go. See, this one's private automatically. Now, what's the difference between awake, start, etc., right? Happens before including start. So sometimes, in order for void start to work, you need something, certain things, like maybe certain variables or whatever, like certain code to happen before void start even happens. So you put this in void awake, and then whatever you need to happen in void start happen, like, is gonna happen, right, without issue. Then you have update, and then you have something called late update, which late update is this happens at the very end. This happens only once per second at the end of the last update. So as I said, like, update is called once per frame, so 60 times per second, right? This one here, it's 1 times per second after the 60th update, basically, right? Like this is the idea, basically, right? And there you go, there you go, exactly. So these are like, this is the general idea, right? Like, the code happens inside of functions, right? And functions can be called, right? Like, for instance, the test function doesn't necessarily have to be in void update, right? Like, eventually I'm going to show you, but you can basically add certain if statements that are going to control whether, like, when something happens, when it doesn't happen, etc., right? So now let me show you, let's talk about like variables, basically, okay? So hold on, let me just see. All right, there you go. Okay, so when it comes to variables, okay, variables are just types of data that it's basically algebra, right? So hold on, so let me show you here, right? So you know how in algebra you have like x equals 3, y equals 2x, and let's say z equals 2y, right? How much is z, right? So it's 12, basically, right? So z equals 12. Yeah, so this is like some really basic algebra, but the idea is the same when it comes to variables. Explaining variables is somewhat difficult. Exactly, it's just like a variable. Hold on. Let me change it to orange. Oh boy. Okay, this doesn't look. Okay. Maybe. No, this is trash. Okay, there you go. A variable is a container is a thing that contains data / information that you can use to make stuff happen. Okay? Example, HP, right? HP, you can have a variable called HP that will be used to determine that will be used to, let's say, make characters that will be used. Like, again, this is difficult to put into words, but basically, like, you can have a variable called HP that will be used in order to make interactions between characters in your game, right? Exactly. So bullet hits between not characters but objects, right? Objects in your game. Example, bullet hits a player character, code takes damage variable, no, code subtracts damage value taken from bullet's damage variable from the player's HP variable. All right. Exactly. Well, honestly, you just need to know the absolute basics of algebra. Like, this isn't like linear algebra or any of that fancy stuff, right? It's just like the most basic stuff. And again, like the way I explained it here is honestly not that good. But once I start showing you some very basic examples, you're gonna get the hang of it, right? So now I'm gonna start doing that, right? So first I'm gonna introduce you. Here are the different types of variables. I'm not gonna show you guys every single type of variable, but I'm gonna show you like all of the main ones that you're gonna need, right? Also, guess I got to do some more learning. Honestly, like, you're gonna see it's super simple. It's like once I start showing you examples in the actual code, you're gonna get the hang of it. And honestly, it's just a matter of practice. Like, the more you do it, the more you're gonna understand, and in like maybe a week at most, you should have like the hang of it. The idea also before I keep going, is the code small, or is it good enough, or like would you want me to like make it look a bit bigger, a bit larger? I don't know. I'm gonna wait for you guys to tell me if the writing is large enough, or if you, yes, no, maybe. Make it look a bit bigger. Okay. Oh, whoops. Okay, there you go. I think this should be good, right? Is this better? Or would you want it even a bit bigger than that? Let's see. Is it big enough? Okay, for me, yes. Okay, perfect. That's good for me. Okay, perfect. Okay. So, all right. So as I said, here are the different types of variables, right? Because like in this example, right, that I used like x equals 3, y equals 2x, that means that y equals 6, z equals 2y, which means that z equals 12. You know, that's very basic algebra. But here, like in code, you can have variables that don't mean that aren't necessarily numbers, right? So variables, how can I say, like, think of variables as how can I say, like, a type of, it's just something, it's a word to refer to something else, right? So in real life, let's say you have someone who's called John, right? Well, John is a variable used to refer to that person, right? So that's a very specific variable used to determine, like to refer to a specific individual. Then you have stuff like water. Water is a word that can technically be seen as a variable used to describe a type of matter, right? Which is water, right? You have air, you have, I don't know, like color, like red. Red is used, it's a variable used to define anything that looks red, right? That has that property to itself, right? So the idea when you're coding is to do the same thing, right? It's to just create variables to define certain things, right? But when the variable is created right here, right, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything until you start putting it into code, right? That's when you that's when you give value to the thing, right? So now let me just go through the various different types of variables here. So let's start with the basics. Again, when you create a variable, you can do private or public, right? Because basically what happens is right here, you're inside of your class, right? Like you're inside everything that happens between this point here and this here, right? Is inside of this class, right? Which, as a reminder, is this script, right? But as long as it's not inside of a function, right? Then it's not gonna run code, right? So what you wanna do is here at the very top is you assign variables, right? You define your variables, right? Here are the different types of variables. This is where you define your variables, okay? And the way you define a variable is in the following way. First, you need to say, is it private or public? Reminder. Private means it cannot be accessed by others, but it can access others, right? Or public ones, right? Public means that it can be accessed by anybody else, and it can also obviously access other public ones, right? So again, you want a public or a private variable. Typically, the only variables you want to be private are variables that are never going to be interacted with outside of this script, right? Because when you create a public variable, the game needs to always keep in mind that this variable can be accessed from anywhere at any point in time, right? Which, when you only have like, let's say, one public variable, it doesn't mean anything. But when it comes to optimization, like it's just a rule of thumb, right? Like if I'm gonna have a variable that is only ever interacted with here, then like I can just make it private. If it's a variable like here, right? Like I said, like I have HP, right? Which would be a public variable. Why? Because whenever the bullet hits the player target, right, the player character, the bullet is gonna have a variable called damage, and this variable, like the damage variable, could be private, right? But it could, but the HP variable has to be public, right? And so the bullet script is going to interact with the player script. It's going to go into the player script and it's going to subtract from the HP, for instance, right? Again, probably the way I just explained it sounds very like abstract, and it might be difficult to visualize, but you're going to see what I mean, right? So, okay, so let's start, right? Is it public or is it private? Let's start with a private variable as an example. Now, once I know whether it's public or private, in this case it's private, I need to know what type of variable it is, right? So let's start with an integer. Int, int stands for integer, then you press space, and then let's say, well, player HP, right? And then you can either do a semicolon, which is good, which you need to put a semicolon, otherwise like, as you can see here, it's giving me an error, right? And like if I scroll over it, it shows me the error. If I click save, right? So this is another thing. Here you can see every time I make a change, you can see some green stuff here. Basically, like, hold on. Like, let me make another change. Let me put a semicolon here. Here it's yellow. That means it's unsaved. It's an unsaved change, right? Now I'm gonna press Control S, right? Or something you want to do is save all. Save all, like assuming you have more scripts. Here, if you look at the right corner, at the right side, you're gonna have all of your different scripts, right? If you do save all, it's gonna save every single script, all the changes. If you just do like a normal save, Control S, it's just gonna save what you did in this script, right? In this case, we only have one script, so you just do Control S, but whatever, right? So now I remove the semicolon, and as you can see, like it's giving me an error. I still saved anyway. And what happens is every time you save, Unity compiles, right? Now here, you can see like some red text here, like at the bottom. And if I click at the console, it's giving me an error, right? Because when it compiled the code, it's like, wait a minute, like you're missing a semicolon, right? Here. So now if I double click this, it's gonna open right at the line that's problematic, and I can just do this. There you go. Sometimes it's gonna, okay, yeah, and here you can see it's like compiling, right? So now it's compiling, bam. Now here in the console, no more errors, right? So that's generally how this works, right? Now, sometimes it's gonna give you some really weird errors, right? Like some really weird messages that like you read this and you're like, I don't understand what the fuck they're saying, right? None of this makes any sense, right? So whenever you get like a very weird error message, what I do is I go to ChatGPT, I copy paste the error, I then copy paste the script that's related to the error, and I'm like, hey, I'm making like, hold on, let me give you an example, right? It's like I go here, ChatGPT, and here I'm like I'm making a game in Unity 6. Well, what I do actually is this. This is what I do. I go here and I'm like, a game in Unity 6. Here's, okay, I'm getting this error in my Unity editor. So let me, I think I had examples, hold on. I think I had examples of like weird shit. Okay, yeah. Let's say this. This is what I do. Bam, like this, right? Like what the fuck does this mean, right? For reference, here's my script. Or something like that. Then I go here and I just like copy paste the script. Bam, and then I copy paste all of this. Oops, I copy paste all of this here, and then I add it, right? So that's typically what I do whenever I'm getting like very weird error messages that like I don't understand. Like, what the fuck does this mean, right? Because Unity, some of the error messages are going to be written assuming you're like a computer engineer, right? Or like a software engineer or something, right? And like you understand every single word and term that they're using and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, like, no. Like I'm just a hobbyist. I'm just trying to make a game in my free time. I don't have time to like go to university and like study all of these terms and whatever the fuck, right? Like I need my shit to work. Please help me. And ChatGPT is gonna like, it's gonna explain to you exactly what the error means, and it's gonna give you like, it's gonna be like, oh well, the error is on this specific line of code. Because sometimes like when you have like hundreds, if not like thousands of lines in a single script, it might be difficult, right? To find where the error is, right? Like one of my scripts on my game, let me look, has 1,549 lines of code, right? So that's one script. I have roughly, by the looks of it, somewhere between 40 and 60 scripts, right? So that's just to give you an idea, right? And my game is not even finished. By the end of it, I'm probably gonna have like 100 scripts. You know, so it's just, and obviously not all of my scripts are like thousands of lines long, but the big ones, they are, right? And so if you have like 1,500 lines, you're not gonna go through every single line until you find the fucking problem, right? You're gonna give your script to ChatGPT, you're gonna give it the error message, and you're gonna be like, hey, like help me fix this, right? So there you go, right? So as I said, to go back to what we were saying, variables. Damn, now that's all scripts, yeah. So basically, here, like when you define a variable, the first thing you say is it private or is it public, right? Then you do int. Well, int is just the type, right? In this case, it's an integer, right? And then here you put the name of the variable, and then here you either put semicolon if you want it to just be called out, and it's gonna give you a default value for an integer, right? Or what you can do is immediately assign it a value. So let's say in this case, we're gonna put 5, right? Now, let me just explain to you guys what each type of variable is, right? So wait, hold on. We're gonna do it like that. Any number, any non-decimal number can be or negative. There you go, right? So basically an integer is any number that isn't decimal, and it can either be positive or negative, and it can go up to infinity or up to minus infinity, right? So that's why here, when I assigned it a value, it's like equal 5. So what this means is, remember when I was talking about like the algebra thing, like x equals 3, well, this is the same thing. But instead of saying x, the variable is called player HP, and here I put it at 5, for instance, right? Now, as you might have seen, everything is in lower caps here, right? Except HP, right? Now, the reason why I've done this is because this is generally how you write down variables, right? The first letter is always non-capital, and then after the first word, then you start putting a capital letter to each one, right? And you're gonna see why that is, right? Also, a good rule of thumb that I'm doing is always put an underscore before any private variable, so that way you know that whether it's private or public immediately, right? So like when you're going through your code and you're reading and you see a variable that starts with an underscore, you know it's a private variable, right? So in this case, I didn't put an underscore, right? And if I were to just, hold on, let me first show you an example. So let's say in void start, right? Here I'm gonna write some code. Let's say in void start, I want my player HP to increase by 1, right? I could do it the following way, player HP. So now I've written the variable itself, right? And I can say equals player HP plus 1 semicolon, right? And the moment I've written the semicolon, now the line works. If there's no semicolon, once again, it's going to give me an error. And if I go into Unity, see, it's giving me semicolon expected. If I go back to here, put the semicolon, I do Control S, right? Control S, it's saved. And see, now I can't click yet because it's compiling the code. Bam, now the error has disappeared, right? So I can do it this way. So what this means, so whenever you put a variable and then you put equal after it, what you're doing is you're saying, like, how can I say, access this variable, right? Like I'm using a reference to this variable here, right? And then I want I want to change its value. So the equal here, what equal stands for is this variable's value is going to change to whatever I write after the equal. Okay, that's what this means, right? So in this case, player HP is going to equal to player HP plus 1, right? Now, remember how I said that typically you want to, if a variable is private, you want to write it with an underscore at the start, right? Well, now if here I were to put an underscore, oh, look what happened. This now has an underscore, right? But now these ones don't have an underscore, and now it's giving me an error. What does it say? The name player HP does not exist in the current context. What this means is this thing doesn't exist. This variable I just wrote doesn't exist, so it's an error, right? Why? Because as I said, here we're referencing a variable that exists. Well, now it doesn't exist anymore because I changed the name. And so now it's not referencing to anything, so the code like doesn't work, right? So now if I were, hold on, did I save yet? Oh no, I didn't save yet. So now let me save the changes. Okay, see, now it's giving me an error. So now if I were to press play, see, all compiler errors have to be fixed before you can enter play mode. Like I can't play, right? It's not letting me, right? So now let me do Control Z, undo. Now it works, but again, it's private, right? Because it's private, it needs to be with an underscore. Now imagine if you have like a script with like hundreds of lines of code and this variable is interspersed all throughout your script. You're not going to go one by one and change each of these, right? What you're going to do is you're going to find any instance of this variable, whether it's this, whether it's this, whether it's this, and all you do is click on it once. So let's say we're going to click on this one, but like it could work with any of them. Any instance of this variable, right? You're going to click, then you're going to right click, and here you have rename, Control R, but I typically just right click, rename, then you click here, you put an underscore, and bam. Now they're all changed. Now they're all changed, it all works. Here it's compiling the changes, bam. And now if I press play mode, usually it loads once, there you go, perfect. See, no issues, no worries, no problems, right? So hold on, let me just drink a bit of water. All right, now here's another way of incrementing the player HP. What I can do is player HP plus equals 1, right? So plus equals, so as I said, equals means that I am changing the value of this to this, right? So basically what I could do here, like what this is gonna do here, right? It's gonna take this value, which has been set to 5 initially, right? So basically this is the same as saying 5. And here it's like saying this variable whose value is 5, it's going to be permanently changed to its value, which is 5, plus 1, right? But now make no mistake, right? This variable, its value is 5, but this variable does not mean 5. This variable means player HP, right? So here what we have is player HP, whose value is 5, is going to be equal to its value, which is 5, plus 1, right? And then here, the difference between this line and this line is that equal here, where it basically like overrides the value, right? This here does not override the value. This here says you're going to keep its value and you're gonna add to its already existing value 1. Now you might think to yourself, well, like this is just this with extra steps, and you're like, yeah, that's true, right? But that's because the example I showed you is incredibly basic, right? Typically, you can use both of these for very different things, right? Now let me show you what that would look like, right? Let's make another variable who's also going to be this one's going to be a public, right? Public integer. And let's say it player HP modifier equals, let's say 0, right? Chat can already see coming how to subtract or multiply. Exactly, perfect. So now, as you can see here, I wrote HP all in caps, and here I wrote only the H in caps, and then the P is in lower, in lowercase, and M is caps, but everything else is in lowercase, right? Now, the reason why I've done this is that here I'm going to show you like why it's really important whether or not to put something private or public, okay? Because public can be accessed by everybody, right? Like remember what I said, public can be accessed and can access other public, blah, 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 right? What this means is that even I myself, a human being, can access this one directly from the editor, right? Because when I click here, oh, look, now we have HP modifier, right? And the reason why I said that when we write stuff, the first letter is not capital, never. Like the first letter is always lowercase, right? And then once you're done with one word, you put one capital letter, and then the rest is lowercase, and then the next word, the first letter is capital letter, etc. It's because here in the editor, it's automatically gonna like segment your variable's name based on the capital letters, except the first one. The first letter, you always leave it lowercase because it's going to be capitalized automatically, right? So there you go. So now as you can see, because this one is private, it doesn't appear in the inspector. Meanwhile, this one, which is public, does appear. And as you can see, like I gave it a value of 0, right? But here I can select this and like put 12, for instance, right? Like I can put -5 or whatever, right? Like I can like any value. I can even like put my mouse here, like in between, well, basically like on the name of the variable itself, and I can just drag like that, right? And I can change it however I want, right? So now if I press Ctrl Z, it's going to go to -5, 12, 0, for instance, right? So typically with a variable like the player HP, you don't want this to be private because you want other things to be able to interact with it, right? Like if the player gets hit by something, you want like the bullet that has a script on it, the script of the bullet to be able to directly interact with the player HP to be able to subtract it. Like let's say the bullet does 5 damage. Well, when the bullet hits the player, you need to be able to subtract 5 from the value of the player HP, right? So all you do is double click this, change it to public, then right click this, rename, remove the underscore, and bam. And now it's compiling. Once again, it's compiling. There you go. Boom, right? Now I have access to both of these, right? And although here I've already set it in advance, oh, not like this, there you go. Because here I've already set it in advance, it's automatically 5, right? But maybe I'm gonna change my opinion, right? Maybe I want it to be 15, right? So I can change it manually here without touching it here. So me personally, what I do typically, right, is that every single integer that is going to be changed automatically, right, I put it at 0, for instance, right? I give it a value of 0 if it's going to be changed automatically, like in the code, like something in the code is going to change it automatically once I press play. But if I want to set it up, and again, this is just a personal trick of mine that I've given myself, I set it to -1, right? That way, whenever I'm going through one of my scripts, right, and I see like, oh, player HP -1, that's not right. So then everywhere I see -1, I change it. Everywhere I see 0, I just leave it. I don't touch it because I know it's automatically going to get updated in the system, basically, right? Now, as you saw, here I changed it to -1, but here it hasn't changed, right? Now, if I were to click this here, like the 3 little dots at the end of the component, and press reset, now it's going to change to -1. Now, if I change this to -100, oops, -100, hold on, there you go. Now it's compiling. And then I press reset, bam, -100, right? So there you go. Because it's basically gonna, because these are like the default values, but once I've put the script here, this script, so basically do you remember how the prefabs worked? How like each, like here it's like the original instance of an object, and here are like clones of the object basically that I'm spawning into the scene. Let me just, here again, a star, so I haven't saved changes, so I'm gonna save, right? So now when I click this here, it works similarly with scripts, right? Like here you have like the original script, and then here are the this is like a clone of this script. The difference, however, is that whatever data I change here, it is not gonna affect this, right? Like as you can see, there's no override. Like here, the override is about whatever changes I made to the object. In this case, I've added a test script. Why? Because if we look at prefabs here, see, this one only has a transform and a box collider. It doesn't have a test script. So if I click here, override, apply all, see now, oops, now this one has a test script. And see, this one's values are like -100 and blah, blah. These ones' values are the absolute default values of the script, of whatever, right? But then if I click on this one, well, okay, this one as well, but let's say this like that. Okay, no, wait, okay, yeah. Okay, no, now I remember. Now, since I've changed this manually, I can override it. Yeah, there you go. So now all, yeah, exactly. My bad. So now basically, as you can see, this one has whatever values of this. Yeah, and exactly. And so basically for prefabs, as you can see with prefabs, whenever I make a change to any prefab in the world, it also affects the original, right? But the scripts themselves, right, it doesn't. So again, here it's -1. Oh, not this. Yeah, okay, this here is -1. Let's put it to -100. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. There you go. right? Now, if I were to spawn this here, right? Like this other variant, right? And to do script, drag and drop it into this, right? See, this one gets the original, right? This one gets the original. Also, there's no point in having the same script multiple times. Like if I drag and drop it here, like there's absolutely no point in having the same script multiple times on a single object. All you ever need is to have the script once, right? So now I made a mistake. I put the same script twice. I just click the three dots here and I do remove component, bam, it's disappeared. Something else you can do if you don't want to drag and drop, I drag and drop just because I'm more of a visual person. But if you just want to, like, if you know exactly what you need, you just click add component. Here you have a list, you write test, bam, there you go. Test, oh, there you go. Oh, but I made a mistake, I already have it, remove component. Bada bim, bada boom, right? Fairly simple. And now you have the overrides, let's say apply all. It wouldn't, sometimes it might cause an error, but other times it might just do the same thing twice, you know? So like, if you have your player character and you put two player scripts on it, right? Well, all this means is that everything's gonna happen twice, right? So like if your character dies, you're gonna get two defeat screens, right? Or like the defeat screen is gonna get called twice, right? If you have a gun that shoots bullets, every time you press to shoot a bullet, it's gonna shoot two bullets at the same time. You know what I mean? So there's just no point in having the same script like twice on the same thing, right? It's just gonna create problems for no reason, basically. All right, so now that I've shown you guys more or less how these things work, right? Like I'm gonna remove this, delete. Oh, and by the way, like when you click delete, it just deletes the clone. It doesn't obviously delete the prefab, right? Like it only deletes that clone of the prefab. Okay. Oops, not this. There you go. Okay. So now, as I said, right, here we can have like a bunch of different stuff, right? So let's say, let me show you in which instances this is useful, right? So again, equal just means we are replacing the value of this thing with something else, right? In this case, I put player HP +1, but what I'm gonna do is, here we start at -100, right? But in my case here, I manually changed it to -1. Let me change it again to -1 just to keep with my own standard that I've put. So -1, whenever I see a variable that's an integer or a float, but I'm gonna explain to you guys what a float is later. Whenever I see a variable with -1, I automatically know that it's that I need to manually modify it in the inspector, right? Whenever I see something with 0, I know I don't need to, right? So in this case, let's say the modifier, I'm also gonna put -1, right? So now we're gonna go here, oops, like that. We're gonna wait for it to compile. We're gonna reset, there you go. All right, override, apply all, there you go. Oh yeah, okay, hold on. This is important. Let me show you. Let's say this one is 35, okay? As you can see, I manually modified this, right? And now it's very difficult to see, but you can see here the little blue thing, and it's like, what do you call it? The font is like, oh my God, I forgot the word. It's not in the italics, it's like thicker, you know what I mean? Like it's slightly like, the font is ever so slightly thicker. Even the 35 looks slightly thicker than the one. Like it's very, very, very subtle, right? What this means is that this is a value that has been modified, but that is different from the prefab, right? The original prefab. And so this here, if I press apply all or revert all, let's say revert all because this was a mistake and I want to go back to -1, bam, revert all. See, now it's back to like being grayed out, not grayed out, but like it's back to being normal, right? Both of these fonts look the same. Both of these behave the same, right? So these are just little tricks that you can use to like notice whether or not like something works the way it's supposed to, or like, oh, I changed a value, but like, because again, here it's showing you overrides, but see, like this is always going to exist, but when you click here, no overrides. You know what I mean? So this can be useful because it's going to show you what you've overridden, right? Like, let's say here, it's like, there you go. Bam, you see empty object test script. So here it says that there's an override that's happened here in this component of this object. Revert all, bam, no more overrides, right? There you go. Okay, so now let me show you the actual code in action, right? Because now that we have here these, what are they called? These variables, right? And it's in void start. So void start only ever happens once at the very beginning, right? Whenever like the object is spawned or whatever, right? What's gonna happen is, let's say player HP equals player HP modifier divided by 2, let's say, right? So let me just block these so that only this one happens, right? So what this means is at the very beginning, this is only gonna happen once, and the player HP is going to like its value of -1 is going to get replaced by the player HP modifier's value divided by 2, right? So again, these are both integers, right? So reminder what an integer is, any non-decimal number. So like 0, 1, 2, it can't be like 0.5, right? It can be -1, it can be +1, it can be 100, a million, a gorillion, doesn't matter, right? But it's a single number and it has no decimals, right? So now what happens when I do divided by 2, right? -1 divided by 2 should be -0.5, but it can't be, right? So let's see what it's gonna give us, right? I press play, and look here, look at the values here on the right. See, so it rounded it to 0, right? So reminder what the code is, player HP, which is -1, is going to be equal to -1, blah, 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 right? This is because it automatically does it, right? It automatically rounds it, right? But you need to be careful with this because like you can make a bunch of mistakes, right? Because here's an example, right? Let me just give you an example. Let's say instead of this, what I'm gonna do is player HP equals 0.5. See, it's already giving me an error because it says cannot implicitly convert type float to int, right? So now you're like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Type float, type int, blah blah blah. What this means is that this variable type, which is an integer, which, as I said, is any non-decimal number. Well, it can't be transformed into a decimal number, right? In this line of code, we got away with it because what I told it is you are an integer, and now your value is going to be replaced with this integer value divided by 2. So that's why it works, right? Because I'm telling it you're still an integer, you're just half of this one, right? Whereas here, what I'm telling it is you are directly a float. Now, what is a float? Hold on. A float is float is any number can be decimal or not. Okay, so a float can be a decimal or it can also not be one, right? It depends. And now you might ask yourself, well, okay, well, then in that case, why should I ever use integers if floats can be full numbers and can also be decimal numbers? Well, the reason for that is just simplicity. It's just like, for instance, whenever I'm doing HP in my game, all of my health point values and all of my damage values are always done in integers, because I don't want to find myself in a situation where like my player character has like a buff that reduces damage by 35%, and then they get hit by a bullet, and so they end up taking like 1.25 damage. Like, that makes no sense, right? Like, you want to take like 1 damage or 2 damage or 5 or 50. You don't want to take 1.17 damage, right? Like, that makes no sense, right? Exactly. So what I can do now, exactly 0.5 HP makes no sense. Exactly. So what I can do, however, is transform this one. So we're going to take here, we're going to change this to float, right? And now you see, like, it still works, right? But typically when you write down a float, what you want to do is already put the decimal and put an F at the end. So see, if I don't put an F, it's gonna be like, what the fuck, this is a mistake, right? Cannot implicitly convert type double to float, right? Double, I don't know what the double is. I've never used the double, but it's another type of variable, right? If you put an F at the end, now all of a sudden it knows it's a float, right? And now you see here, it says cannot implicitly convert type float to blah, 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 right? Why? Because, as I said, here it equal means we are taking this thing's value and we are replacing its original value, which in this case is -1, unless I manually change it in the inspector, right? But basically, you take this thing's value, and equal means you replace its value with whatever this is, right? And now, because I said like you replace this integer's value with half of this float's value, it's not gonna work, right? And so here is where the plus equal or minus equal comes in, right? So let's say player HP. Well, first of all, let's remove this. Player HP plus equals HP modifier divided by 2, right? Now again, you're like, well, what the fuck? Why doesn't this work? Because I'm telling it to take this, like, keep its value and add a float value to it, right? So again, it's a problem. So what I could do is the following, okay? Well, actually, let's just gray this out. Player HP plus equals, and then I write math f, okay, math f dot round to int. So round it to returns f stands for float, rounded to the nearest integer, right? Okay, and then boom. And as you can see, it was giving me an error, but it's always going to give you errors until you're finished with your line of code, right? So here I do player HP modifier divided by 2, bada bim bada boom. And now it works, because now I told it to use mathf is just a collection of common math functions, right? So you do mathf, and whenever you have like any reference to anything, right? Like, so in this case, it's like, what's it called? It's a variable, whatever. Here it's a collection of functions. The dot that you put after it is to access one of the things, right? So again, player HP, let's say, is equal to mathf, and then if I press dot but nothing else, it's gonna show me all the different functions, like math equations and functions I can use, right? There you go. And in my case, I used round, or round to int, right? So there you go. And so now, because it's rounded, look at what it's gonna give me. If I press play, again, pay attention to player HP. Player HP modifier is not gonna change because nowhere in the code here did we tell it to change. All we did was use this thing's value to modify this thing's value, right? So pay attention to the player HP variable here. Right now it's equal to -1. And then the moment this starts, well, it's equal to -1 again, right? Why? Because we did, hold on. because we did player HP plus equals -1 divided by 2 rounded to an integer, so 0, right? So that's why I didn't give anything. Let me just, this was a bit underwhelming. Let me just change this to -5, let's say, right? And let's override just for fun. No. There you go. Okay, there you go. So now it's equal to 3, basically, right? And that's because, so what happened is it took half of -5, which is -2.5, and then it rounded it to the nearest integer, right? And the way this works, hold on, not this, is if you have -5 divided by 2, right, it's going to give you -2.5. And if it's rounded to the nearest int, which is a non-decimal number, it's going to round it to the highest one in this case, right? So it's going to round it to -2, right? It's going to round it to -2. And so then what we have is player HP, which is equal to -1, plus equals means that plus equals -2. What this means is that it's as if you say like -1 plus -2. That's basically what you're saying, right? That's the gist of it, right? Oops, there you go. All right. Okay. I know this is a lot of information. Let me guys know if this makes sense so far, if everything's like, if y'all have any questions or anything, so far so good. Okay, perfect. All right. So now I'm probably gonna have to go soon. So I'm just gonna introduce you guys to some of the other variables, right? And then next Saturday, we're actually gonna start deep diving into actual like code, right? Like how to make stuff work properly, right? But before that, let me just show you like an example of how you would do constant code, right? So let's just erase all of this. There you go. Okay, and these are like the default values. And now here in the test function, what I'm gonna do is player HP plus equals player HP modifier. Now again, it's giving me an error because I'm adding an integer or a float to an integer value. So what I can do is I can either round it again, like mathf round, oops, no, mathf dot round to int. So again, let me just summarize this. Player HP plus equals mathf dot round to int in parentheses, and whatever's in the parentheses is whatever is going to get rounded, right? So in this case, HP modifier. There you go, okay? So that's all I'm doing. So again, test function. Remember, test function is in the update, and so it's going to happen like once every frame, right? So let's see here. Let's change these values. Let's say player HP is 0, and let's say if I were to put this at 0.5, it's gonna equal 1. If I were to put it at 0.4, it's gonna equal 0. So now if I press play, player HP is gonna stay at 0. It should. Yeah, there you go. It's staying at 0. So you're like, well, what the fuck? Nothing's happening. The code is running. It's just that because it's rounding it to the nearest integer, the nearest integer to 0.4 is 0. The nearest integer to 0.5 is 1, right? So now if I put this at 0.5, it's going to round it to 1. So now this is going to increase roughly by 60 every second. You're going to see the numbers just going to skyrocket. Oh, or maybe not. Oh, because maybe it's still changing it to, maybe it's still rounding it to 0. So in this case, hold on, is it 0.6? Man, I'm rusty. Hold on. Yeah, okay, there you go. So you see how quickly this goes up? Because it's going up by like 60 a second, basically. There you go. Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. If I were to do it at 0.51, it should still go up. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, perfect. There you go. So that's an example. Oh, not save as. Save. All right, there you go. Perfect. So this is an example, right? Now I'm gonna show you guys a third type of what's it called? A variable, a third type of variable, which is going to be, oh, not this. Boolean, which is a variable whose value is always true or false. There you go. So a boolean. So let's say public bool is incrementing or is modifying HP equals false. If all I did, because again, like if all I did was put the semicolon after, it's gonna give it the default value, which for an integer, the default value is 0. A float, the default value is 0.0f. And for a boolean, the default value is false, right? And again, they're all public so that I can see them and I can access them here, right? There you go. Right, so see here, the check mark, there's no check mark, right? Because it's false. If it's true, if its value is true, then there's gonna be a check mark. But because the default is nothing, there you go. If I were to do true like that, hold on, let me just modify this. Okay, there you go. Yeah, if I were to reset See, now it's -1, true. -1, -1.0, true. I typically always put them at false, just to make sure that like nothing weird happens. And then if I need it to be true, I do it here. So now what I'm gonna do is in start is modifying HP equals true. There you go. It's modifying HP equals true. And then, hold on. Oh. We're gonna reset this, and this we're gonna put it back to 0.51. This here is gonna go back to 0. As we had done, we're gonna save everything. Here we're gonna override, apply all. All right. And now you might ask yourself, okay, well, what's the point of a Boolean? Well, typically you use Booleans for stuff like, is something happening, right? So basically, as long as is modifying HP is false, we don't want test function to happen, right? Now let me rename test function, right? Like you remember how I rename, like I click on this, I right click, rename. I can also rename a function, right? So here we're gonna do modify HP function, bam, right? So now this is the modify HP function, right? Now I want this to be happening every frame only whenever is modifying HP is true, right? So what I'm gonna do is something called an if statement. An if statement is like the most basic way you can make stuff happen in code. Like other than what I've just done is you write if, and then in parentheses is whatever you're gonna put. It's like, it's as if you say, well, if this, hold on, let me write it. It's gonna be easier to visualize. If something is a certain way, then this will happen, right? That's the idea. That's the idea of an if statement. You say like, if, let's say, x equals y, then z equals x, let's say, right? That's the idea. You're just saying like, if something happens, do this or do that. Like a condition for something, exactly. It's exactly that. The if statement is you're creating a condition and you're saying whenever this condition is true, make whatever's gonna happen, right? So in this case, it's is modifying HP equals true, and we close the parentheses, and then we do the double brackets, and then you press enter, right? And so whatever is in between the brackets or whatever, we're gonna copy this, bam, there you go, right? If is modifying HP equals true, then modifying HP function is gonna happen, right? So now let's look at this in action, okay? Again, is modifying HP is false. The moment I press play, this is gonna turn true, and the HP is gonna start incrementing incredibly fast. And then the moment I click on this again, it's gonna stop, okay? So now it's going up, now it's stopped, now it's going up, now it's stopped, going up. See? It's that simple, right? It's that simple to make stuff. Now you might be looking at this and you're like, well, hold on a minute. Why did you do equal? Well, because equal, because again, like if you put equal only once, what it means is you are replacing the original value with something else, right? And in the case of like a Boolean, you can't do plus equal, right? Like it doesn't work. You can't do minus equal either, right? Like also the difference between plus equal and minus equal is that plus equal is you keep the original value and you add this new value, like all of this new value to it. Minus equal is the exact same thing, but reversed, right? You keep the original value and you subtract this new value from the original one, right? And so let's say what we want to do is modifying HP equals true? Okay. Then the modify HP function is going to run, right? Now let's make things a bit more interesting. Let's have an if statement here that says if player HP is lower than, let's say, 100, right? And I don't need to put 0.0f or whatever because it's an integer, right? If player HP was, so let's say if I were to do HP modifier is lower than 100.f, I can also just put 100, but me personally, I prefer always putting the 0, like 0.0f or whatever, just because that way, whenever I read my code, I'm like, oh yeah, right. The player HP modifier is a float, right? Something else I sometimes do is whenever I create the variables, if it's an integer, I just leave it like that. If it's a float, I put a capital F at the end. Because that way, the moment I see F, I'm like, okay, it's a float. If I don't see anything, I'm like, oh, okay, it's an integer, right? So now what I'm going to do to spice things up is I'm going to say the condition is as long as the player HP is lower than 100, okay? So let's say it's lower or equal to 100, okay? You're going to increment the HP. And now here I'm going to do an else, which else, or no, else if, I'm going to do an else if player HP is, okay. I know what I'm going to do. Player HP is, greater or equal, not exactly. Okay, hold on. So now here what I've created is player HP is, as long as it's lower or equal to 100, it's gonna increase. But then the moment it hits 100, I want it to start going down, right? Okay. Okay, I have an idea. Can you share the scripts for chat? I'm too lazy to copy everything. Sure. Hold on, I'm gonna... See, I'm so retarded that I'm like complicating things way too much. Hold on, how can I show you what I'm trying to show you, okay? So let's say we're gonna change is modifying HP. Oh no, we're gonna keep as modifying HP, and now we're gonna do public, we're gonna do other booleans. And is incrementing HP equals false. Public bool is decrementing HP equals false. Okay, is modifying HP. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do here, okay, we're gonna remove this, is the following if statement. If player HP is greater or equal to 100, is incrementing HP equals false, and then is decrementing HP equals true, okay? Well, what I'm gonna do is once it reaches 100, it's gonna stop and it's gonna start going down, and once it reaches minus 100, it's gonna stop and it's gonna start going up, right? So if player HP, right, and then else if player HP is lower or equal to minus 100, okay, we're just gonna copy paste this, okay, there you go, false, true, okay, and then just to help ourselves, it's whenever player HP variables value reaches or surpasses 100, it'll stop going up and start going down. There you go. And then otherwise, whenever player HP variables value reaches minus 100 or below, it'll stop going down and start going up. There you go. And now here what I'm gonna do is, if is incrementing HP, right? And then here what I could do is just write else, or, hold on, there you go. There you go. Or I could do else if like that, right? Now here, if you can see in this if statement, I just have is incrementing HP. I don't have like is equal true or whatever. That's because this means the same thing as this in the sense of like is incrementing HP with nothing is the same as if I were to put this. But me personally, I prefer putting it like that just to be extra sure, right? Just so that when I read it, I don't get confused. I'm like, okay. So this here means that because is incrementing HP is true, then the HP is going up. And then here, else if is decrementing HP equals true, then bada bing, bada boom, right? And as if you can see here, I did is incrementing HP initially, I put it at false. So I change this value, meaning that this stops happening. And immediately afterwards, I change this to say that this starts happening. The only reason I'm doing this in this order, whereas here it's like the opposite, right? Like once we reach the bottom, here this stops, and then I'm telling for this to start. The only reason I'm doing it like that in this specific order is it's just in case. Just in case, just so that both, like if this one's going, this one stops, and then this one starts, instead of, because if I were to do is decrementing HP equals true before putting this one false here, there's like a slight chance that this might start while this isn't done. It's not gonna cause a bug, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so just knowing that this might happen bothers me, you know? But like it's up to you. You can do it however you want. Me personally, that's how I do it, right? I just make sure that like everything happens in a specific order, that everything is controlled. That way, like I know at any point in time what's happening, right? Now, I know I spoke about like the if statements, right? But this here is an else if, and earlier I showed you an else statement, right? The idea is very simple. This here is a condition, and whenever this condition is true, this is gonna happen, right? Immediately afterwards, I can click this and I can put an else if, which is useful whenever you want like, well, okay, well, if this condition isn't true, then this doesn't happen. However, whenever this isn't true, immediately afterwards, check to see if this is true, right? Won't that take longer to load the game? What do you mean by that question, Russian? What is going to take longer to load the game? I'm just curious, because I'm not sure I understand the question. Okay, hold on. Let me just... All right. Well, while you reiterate your question, I'm just gonna keep explaining here. So basically, exactly. So as I was saying, like the difference between, let's say, writing this in this specific way, or writing it like that, or simply having two if statements, it's that if I only have two if statements, then this is always going to get checked. And immediately after this gets checked, this is going to get checked as well, right? And sometimes you might not want to do that, right? And in those instances, you do else if, right? And what this means is that, as I said, like modifying function happens once per frame. So let's say in the first frame, it's going to go through this. It's going to see that player HP isn't greater or equal to 100. So it's going to skip this. It's going to check this. It's going to see that it's not greater or equal to minus 100. So it's going to skip this as well. Then it's going to check this to see if is incrementing HP equals true. And if it's false, it's going to check this to see if this is true. And if this false, it's just going to keep going, right? So that's the idea. It's like whenever you want, like, basically I want this to get checked only when this is false, right? So that's why I do an else if. And here I can also add an else, right? So what this means is that if this isn't true, if this isn't the case, and this isn't the case, but we don't have another if statement, so just in general, if both of these have been checked and are false, do whatever, right? So in this case, let's say I'm gonna put, because we have is modifying HP equals, like it is true here at the start. And so here I'm gonna do is incrementing HP equals, oops, true. Now the reason why I'm gonna put this else statement here, it's because the default is false on both of these, right? The is modifying HP is changed to true at the start, right? And as long as this is true, this function is gonna run. But because initially both of these are false, and the player HP is exactly 0, so it's not greater than 100 and it's not lower than minus 100, then both of these are always going to stay false, right? Because it's going to check, it's like, well, this isn't true, so we're not changing shit. This isn't true, so we're not changing anything. And like, let's pretend that this doesn't exist, right? This doesn't exist, so it's going to go here. Well, this is false, so this isn't happening. This is false, so this isn't happening. But by putting an else, it's going to say, well, whenever both of these are wrong, baseline just put this one true, for instance, right? Okay, so checking everything individually to make sure it's a correct value. Don't worry, this code will only work a single, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So like the example here, the reason why I told you that I like it to be in this specific order, like honestly, it's not performance intensive at all. Like it is not performance intensive whatsoever, right? It's just that whenever you start having like a bunch of different things all happening at the same time, that's when you want to make sure that the order in which your things happens is very specific, because sometimes you might get a bunch of bugs when like one, like let's say the modify HP function in this script is going on at the same time as the function in another script, but both of these scripts are like interacting with the same variables, and so they start like fucking each other over because they're both like altering the same variable and they're using it to do different things with it. You know what I mean? So this is why, like, even from the most basic examples, I'm letting you know to make like a specific order of things, just so that you get the good habits, right? So you develop the right habits, right? To use and everything, right? So anyways, so now with the code done, let's test it, right? Well, actually, hold on. Just to prove a point, I'm going to erase, well, not erase, but deactivate this. So do you remember when I said, like, if you put these two dashes, it's going to nullify the code, right? Well, if you have, like, here you have 4 lines, you don't want to put like this, because what happens if I want to turn this entire function off, right? Like, I'm not gonna put like dashed lines like in front of every line, right? Like, what I'm gonna do is this, so a star and then a dash, and then here above it I'm gonna put dash star, and bam, everything from here to here gets deactivated, right? Now I'm gonna erase these. Oh, not like that. And now I'm gonna do this. Boom. There you go. So now this here has been disabled. And now let's see. There you go, right? So now what's gonna happen is modifying HP is gonna turn true, but both of these are gonna stay false, right? And so nothing's gonna change. There you go, right? All right. So now what I'm gonna do, first I'm gonna change this value to, let's put at, well, okay, let's put at minus 0.51 so that it gets rounded to 1. And then here, we're gonna remove this. Hold on, now it's compiling. It's compiling here. Okay, there you go. So now what's gonna happen is modifying HP is gonna become true, and is incrementing HP is gonna become true, right? Because as I said here, if this isn't true and this isn't true, so if the player HP isn't above 100, this isn't gonna run. This logic here is not gonna run. And if the player HP is not below minus 100, which it's not because the player HP is at 0, this also isn't gonna run. In which case, if both of these things didn't happen, do this, basically. Right? So now I'm gonna press play and look at them, is modifying HP and is incrementing HP. Bam. Oh. Okay. There you go. Oh, okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So see, this is constantly getting activated and deactivated, and now it's constantly fluctuating between 99 and 100, right? So there you go. So we have a bug, right? So now, why is there a bug, right? Well, there's a bug because of an else statement, right? Here we have an else statement, and the else, it's not an else if. So basically this happens whenever both of these are false, right? Now, why does this run every time, constantly? Because at the very beginning, player HP is at 0, so it's not above 100, it's not minus 100. So both of these are false, so it automatically does this. So the HP starts going up, right? Because whenever is incrementing equals true, the HP starts going up. The moment the HP reaches 100 or above, this happens. So it starts, so this becomes true, so it starts going down, right? But the moment player HP goes below 100, right? Exactly. So the moment the HP goes below 100, this isn't true. This also isn't true because it's not below minus 100. And so this becomes true, right? But this is also still true. So now it keeps going between 99 and 100, right? So that's the bug. So something very simple we can do is add an if, and we can say is decrementing. There you go. So what this means is if this isn't happening, so if player HP isn't above 100 or isn't above or equal to 100, if player HP is not below or equal to minus 100, then check if only if this is false. If this is false, make this true, which means that if this is true, don't do anything, right? So now with this simple thing, it should be working as intended. There you go. Boom. Yeah, well, modern game developers are subhumans, but that's just my opinion. But again, like, this is the beauty of code. You can fix this in a bunch of different ways, right? Like, I could technically fix this without even this entire else if statement, right? All I need to do, so let me show you how I could fix this issue immediately, is just copy this line here, add it to void start, and it's basically gonna do this. Like, at the very beginning, is modifying HP is gonna be true, which means that the modifying HP function is gonna happen, and then this is also automatically gonna be true, so it's automatically gonna start incrementing HP, right? So if we do that, hold on. If we do that, bam. See? Now it works perfectly as well. Right? So that's the thing with code. Like, you can do the same thing in like a multitude of different ways, right? You can do it in any which way suits you or like works for you or whatever. Obviously, some ways are more optimal than others, but that's the idea, right? So yeah, so this here are the basics, okay? I'm probably gonna end the stream fairly soon, like in about like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, just because, as I said, like I have to get going to my parents' place because it's like a fucking celebration or whatever. But what I'm gonna do is I'm almost done setting up the Discord server. Like, technically I have a Discord server, but I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna do everything in there yet. So probably next Saturday, so for the next stream, I'm gonna have like the Discord server in the description. I'm gonna link it to chat, and over there I'm gonna start giving people like resources and everything, because we haven't gone in depth enough with code yet, right? So there's no real point in me like giving you guys like this script yet, because frankly it's like it's a little too basic, right? And we're missing, like, I haven't shown you all of the different like basic things you can do, right? Like, I haven't shown you, because right now I've only shown you these ones, right? Like integer, float, Boolean, right? But there are other things, like there are lists, which lists, hold on, I'm just gonna copy paste the list real quick just to give you a kind of, I'm gonna show you like a list. Let's say it's a public list of type integer. I'm gonna call it numbers list equals new list, new list of type int. Oh, hold on. There you go. New list. A generic list cannot be used with type arguments. Public list. No, I get. Can you guys hear my phone fucking vibrating? Jesus. Okay, numbers list. Okay, so why is it giving me an error here? Is it? It might be because, wait, what the fuck is this? Okay. So let me just, here I have Unity Engine. Let's see if it's using Unity collections. Is that, no. Okay, hold on. public list. Ah, there you go. Okay, there you go. That's the one. God damn. So see, this is the important part of these things up here, right? It's using Unity engine, using Unity.collections, using blah, 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 right? So for instance, it was giving me an error because it wasn't able to detect like, well, what the fuck is a list, right? Until I included this thing. So when we get to the part where we're doing like UI and stuff like that, like we're gonna start adding stuff like that, right? Like we're gonna start adding Unity engine dot UI, Unity engine dot whatever, right? Like let's say using Unity dot, is it UI or is it Unity engine dot, well, AI. So for instance, AI would be to do like nav mesh stuff, audio, experimental, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, UI, there you go. Boom. So now a type of variable that I can do is public text placeholder text. Boom. Public button placeholder button, etc., right? Exactly, those are basically like libraries that contain all of the different things, right? Like in this case, I'm gonna, so now if I remove this, see, all of a sudden these went from green, see, now they're green, to blue with an error, right? Because now the library doesn't exist anymore, you know? And so what a list is a variable that can contain multiple values at the same time. So not just like one value, right? So I'm just gonna give you a brief example. So see here, now this has appeared, right? Numbers list. So if I do plus, here I can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can start removing them, etc. I'm gonna show you guys how to do lists and a bunch of other stuff. Like we're gonna start doing loops and lists and like other stuff like that, like on the next stream. But for now, again, like for now, I'm gonna leave this here. I'm not gonna send you guys this script yet, but starting next stream, I'm gonna be sending you guys like, not only like giving you guys, well, it's all gonna be in the Discord server. So the idea is next stream, I'm gonna set up the Discord server. I'm gonna send you guys the link and everything. And in the Discord server, we're gonna have like a bunch of resources that you can use, like a bunch of like really good, because most tutorials are shit in Unity, but there's one guy specifically whose tutorials are absolutely like amazing. And so starting next stream, because what we saw today was the absolute basics, right? So like honestly, if you want, you can just like watch the VODs and copy what I did, right? Like here's the script, right? I'm gonna show you this like that, right? You can start like fucking around, like copying this or whatever on your own. But starting next stream, I'm gonna start showing you guys how to make like actual proper code. So next Saturday and next Sunday, I'm gonna show you how to do like some like actual real code. On Saturday, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to get to the player inputs, but Sunday I should be able to. So either Saturday or Sunday, we're gonna get to the point where like you can actually start moving a character with like WASD, maybe making them jump, you know, doing a bunch of like cool stuff like that, like how to move an object, how to make it rotate, you know, maybe even starting to do collisions. Like we'll see how quickly we're going, right? And at that point, I'm gonna start I'm gonna send you guys the Discord server, and on the Discord server, I'm gonna have like all of my scripts, all of my other stuff, like all of the game dev tutorials that I know, and all that stuff, right? So hopefully that's gonna be helpful for you guys. And as I said, I'm gonna start showing you guys how to do specific mechanics but like not like I'm not gonna give you a tutorial of like, oh, this is how you do a tower defense, or this is how you do like an RPG or whatever. It's more gonna be like, here's how you make an inventory system. Here's how you make, or rather, here's how I make an inventory system. Here's how I make a projectile system. Here's how I make a melee combat system, for instance, right? Like stuff like that, right? And so based on what I'm doing, you can start like fucking around and like kind of discovering your own style of coding, right? And at that point, by messing around, by doing your own stuff and whatever, like you're gonna be able to, you know, like prototype ideas, discover how you like to code, how you like to do things, and yeah, and from that point, like kind of like start flying on like with your own wings, if that makes sense, right? So is everything clear? Do you guys have any more questions? Anything like that? Maybe not. I'm gonna wait a bit because I know there's a delay and I'm not sure how long the delay is. Save. I'm gonna close this. No questions yet. All right, perfect. Okay, so again, like next, like every Saturday and Sunday at around noon is when I'm gonna be streaming. And yeah, if you guys want, hold on, let's see this. Let's end the stream by reacting to this shit, okay? I have no, so this is, oh wait, it's a cinematic. Oh, hold on. Okay, this looks gay as fuck. Yeah, this looks omega cringe. Bruh. The fuck is this? Ugh. Absolute garbage. Okay. See, like, what is this? Let's go back. Like, this is an 8, almost 9-minute cinematic trailer. Like we're quickly skimming through it, and it's like, what is this? Like how many millions of dollars have they spent on this bullshit, right? Absolute slop. Absolute. Bruh. Let's look at the gameplay highlights.
You kind of feel the blood pumping.
Got him.
Oh.
Call again, and got him.
What is she doing there? What is she doing there? What is that in the background? What is this? What the fuck is this color scheme? What the fuck is this disgusting UI? What is this? Oh, bro. The fluorescent colors and character design are like an automatic tell that is crap. Exactly.
Down the ball again, and 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 again.
You know they're not real gamers because you haven't heard a single F slur or a single N word or any of that.
This is a new world. This is a
Shut up.
different take on an extraction shooter.
Shut the fuck up. Oh my god, this fucking guy, bro.
It's game changing. It is literally game changing.
Bruh.
Gang, there is.
Like, what am I watching? What is this?
Either way, I'm getting shredded right now, so I gotta eat it.
This looks like Call of Duty but gay. Like, bruh. They all say that this is a new world or game. Exactly. They all say these fucking stupid buzzwords. Like absolutely cretinous bullshit. Oh damn. He's that's the face you make when you're about to kill someone, bro. God damn.
When you have the mechanics kit, it doesn't take anything. You just good. Yeah.
What the fuck is this garbage?
Player. I mean. Yeah.
Absolute garbage. Anyways, don't make games like these, guys. Oh my god, I fucking hate these people. Anyways, exactly. It's just, bro. Gaming is cooked, bros. Gaming is cooked. Anyways, on that disgusting note. Yeah, the fucking glass window side, bro. Just whatever. Just whatever. Meanwhile, you have like. Hold on. There you go. Spaceman 2. My internet is like bugging the fuck out sometimes. Come on. Stop being disabled.
You will desert your post, Guardsman.
Yeah, look at this. Look at this.
Trying to get up here. Take them down.
This already feels a million times better. Anyways, on that note, I think I'm gonna let you guys go. As I said, next Saturday at noon, we're gonna start like coding in earnest. We're gonna start doing like more serious stuff, more practical stuff. And again, like I'm not sure exactly how far we're gonna go. But the idea is I'm going to start showing you guys how to do like real proper code, right? And one of the important things I'm going to show you guys is how you can have one script interacting with another, right? So let's say you have like script 1, right? Interacting with script 2 and vice versa, right? So like how can script 1 gain access to variables inside script 2 and vice versa, right? Because for instance, like if a character like shoots a bullet, the bullet has a script that detects when it collides with something. Well, how is the bullet gonna take its damage variable, like its damage integer, and then subtract, well, basically like, hold on, like player HP minus bullet damage. See, so bullet damage is a variable inside script 2, player HP is a variable inside script 1. And it's like, how do both of these scripts communicate with one another? How can you do these different things? We're going to start looking at these things, right? Like we're going to start looking at how to make actual real proper code in like Unity and everything, right? So that's the plan. I think I've kept you guys for long enough. We're almost going 2.5 hours and I really need to get going. So thanks for coming, guys. I honestly really appreciate it. As I said, like even if there's a single person watching, it's like already more than I expected. And again, like if you guys have any feedback, if you guys have anything, just like let me know. Eventually, like in the Discord server, it's gonna be easier because you're gonna be able to send me messages more often. And yeah, on that note, I'm gonna get going and have a nice week, guys. And I'll see you guys on Saturday the 19th at noon Eastern time, North American East Coast time. All right, take care, boys.